Hey, everybody. Hi, it's Darcy from the purposefulpantry.com. Welcome to Saturday Night Live. Should I start calling it that? Because it seems to me that this is what we're doing all the time now. So if you're here, say hi so I can see you, so I can say hi to you. Just a couple of things. If you see me looking up here all the time, it is because I can hardly read the screen over here where all the comments are. So I look up on my bigger monitor to see that. But say hi. Let me know you're here. Glad to have you here, who all are here. And today we're going to talk about dehydrating myths and things that people think that aren't true, and then answer any questions that you have. So let me know you're here. Hey, Seabass, how are you? I hate calling you that all the time because I don't know your real name. But hey, Seabass. Hi, Annette. Hi, Diana. Welcome back. Thanks for coming. All right, let me get this up here so I can see the comments a little better. I can see them, but it's so much easier when I can get them on the big screen because it's really bigger. Hey, Time. Hey, Betty. Hi there. Hey, Lori. Hey, Terry. Welcome. I'm glad you guys stopped by. So before we get started, I just wanted to make, I pinned it up in the comments, a myth about my dehydrating and things that I do is that I do not ship overseas any of the products that I carry in the Purposeful Pantry store. Let me change this a little bit. Wind this back down. I have a standing desk that we try to do this with, and I was a little off. But I do actually have an Etsy store called The Purposeful Pantry. All TPP is capped, but the Purposeful, try that again, The Purposeful Pantry. I have loaded up all of the beginner dehydrator toolbox products that are there now, so that if you live anywhere outside of the US, if you're in Australia, if you're in England, if you're anywhere in Europe, if you're anywhere in Africa, any place that accepts USPS mail, you can now get it. And it is, sorry, let me grab these real quick. It is a dehydrating checklist. It is a dehydrating temperature sticker, a dehydrating temperature magnet, and nevertheless she preserved sticker. And also it includes my dehydrating basics books and the 200 best dehydrating recipe guide and the best meals in a jar recipe guide. They are all available at Etsy, and they're in the pinned comments in the comment section here, and it'll be down below too. Just want to get that out of the way while we're waiting, because people have been asking and assuming that I don't ship there, but I do. I ship anywhere that you can get mail from the United States. I will ship to. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's go with it. Okay. Hey, Daily Prepper, thank you. Hey, Vivian. Connie, good. I'm going to make note of that. I hope I remember it next time. I really do. It's weird calling you Seabass when you're here all the time and not having a real name. Hey, M. Wells, how are you? Hey, Cindy. Hey, Gods, Alberta. Glad you're here too. Okay, so today we're going to talk about dehydrating myths. And I want you to put just in the comments over here, what is a dehydrating myth that you have heard? Okay, a myth, what you think is a myth. Maybe it's a question you have about something someone has said, but what are those dehydrating myths that you've heard? I'm going to kind of go through a couple, but we're also going to take your comments to see which ones you have too. My first one is one that food always comes back to fresh. And I've heard people say that before, and I want to go, no. For the most part, food does not come back to the way it was when it was fresh. Most things are going to be best done inside another meal. So when you dehydrate butternut squash is probably going to be better if you put it into a soup or a stew or a casserole than to try to rehydrate it, brown it, and have it on its own as a diced butternut squash. You may like it. It may work for you. But for the most part, most dehydrated foods don't come back to what they originally were when you just cut them up and dice them up when they were fresh. They're a little bit more like they were when they were cooked. And then one of the things that people forget is when they rehydrate things, they need to go ahead and finish cooking them and to get the texture they're used to. So that's one myth. It doesn't really come back to fresh, and it takes a little work to get it to where you might like it, but it's worth the work. Okay. Thanks, Phyllis. I'm so glad. Hey, Judy. Hey, old timer. So glad to see you here, Lee. Hey, Flyer. Hey, Kathy. All right. Okay, Marion. Hi. Good to see you here. Okay. So any myths that you've heard about dehydrating? I'm curious what you think they are. Okay, two, the second myth of dehydrating is that you lose all the nutrients. Now, here are some, I'm going to put some caveats in there, okay? I hear that mostly from people who are freeze dryer fanatics. Or people who don't really understand how dehydrating works. And I'm not saying that freeze drying is wrong, or that if you're enthusiastic about your freezer, that's awesome. I'm glad. But you don't lose all the nutrients in dehydrating. When you blanch things, you don't lose all the nutrients when you blanch them to prepare for dehydrating. When you're doing vegetables, you will lose a little. The heat sensitive A and C vitamins you will start to lose. But things about blanching is that it actually allows some nutrients that you can't get when it's raw to be available to you when it's been blanched. It also helps stop the enzymatic process that makes your food turn color when it's been sitting on the shelf for a while. So it saves those nutrients as well. So if you've ever done, like, carrots is a big one. If you've done dehydrated carrots and then after a while you notice they're kind of white, that's because you probably didn't blanch them and you're losing that keratin. So keratin. So blanching doesn't take all the nutrients, and it makes some nutrients more available to us. And when you're drying at proper temperatures that are recommended from the temperature table that you can get, that saves the most nutrients versus the efficiency of drying. Then if you dry anything below 115 F and 42 C, it keeps all of the nutrients, so you're not losing any. So that's one big myth that people have, is that you're going to lose nutrients with dehydrating. You don't. When you cook food, after you've dehydrated it, after you've freeze dried it, after you've done anything like that, and you start to cook, then yes, you're going to lose nutrients the same way that you would lose them if you cooked them right from fresh. So you're not saving nutrients forever, but you're saving them for storage. Okay, let me see if anybody else has one. Hey, Julia. Hi. Hey, Flyer. Hey, Anna. One myth: dehydrated food lasts forever. Gee, that's a good one. I didn't even write that one down. Dehydrated food optimally lasts 12 to 18 months. Okay, that's the optimal range. Then over time, you might start to find that you lose texture. You might start to lose nutrients as things start to degrade, especially if it should have been blanched and you didn't, then you're going to have that happen faster. Now, you might have a longer shelf life of some foods, and that's great if you can. But we don't recommend that you save dehydrated foods and expect them all to last 10 or 15 years, because they're not all going to do that. In fact, fruits and tomatoes will probably degrade even faster than regular vegetables. So expect your dehydrated foods to last 2 years, okay? 2, maybe 3, maybe at the outset. Optimally 12 to 18 months. You'll get a little curve on the backside of that where they're still good. But if you're looking for like that 5, 10, 15-year range, go with freeze dried. I know it's more expensive to buy it, and it's really more expensive to buy a machine, but it's made for that really long-term stuff. Okay, another myth that Cindy has is that you need to blanch everything, and that's correct. That's correct. That is a myth. There are recommended things that you should blanch because it helps stop the color change, like with potatoes, because otherwise, if you don't blanch them, or at least parboil them or part cook them, some way to pre-treat them, they will turn dark, and they will turn like really dark brown or black when you're drying them. And while they're still good to eat, they're not appetizing at all. There are things that fall in a mid-range, that are things that the rule of thumb can be, if you eat it raw, you do not have to dehydrate it. Okay. I mean, you don't have to blanch it. Now, some things can be better when they're blanched anyway, because it just comes up with a better texture later, but you can still do it either way. There are things like greens that you should blanch them before consuming normally. Like if you're going to eat them for a meal, they should be blanched first to stop that enzymatic. It stops the oxalic acid. It neutralizes it so that you actually can absorb more nutrients from your greens. But when you're dehydrating them, you don't have to do that. You can just go straight onto the trays and dry them. So no, not everything has to be blanched first. Good, Cindy. All right. Okay, Connie, the measurement is roughly 1 cup of fresh vegetables or fruit or anything equals 1/4 cup of dehydrated equals 1 tablespoon of powder. That's a good general equivalency. It will adjust a little bit by how you prepped your food, what kind of food and how dense it is, and all that kind of stuff. But that's a good general basis, is 1 cup equals 1/4 cup dried equals 1 tablespoon powdered. Okay, Daily Prepper, the secret to banana chips. They always come out too brown. You need to pre-treat them. because they oxidize. So there are lots of methods that you can use. If you go to my site, thepurposefulpantry.com, and in the search bar, just put pre-treat, it will pull up a pre-treatment list for you for your vegetables. For your fruits. But I will link it here in case it helps you. Sorry, it's going to take me a second to get it over. Just remember to hit Alt return on it to get it to open in a new window for you instead of kicking you out of YouTube. Another secret too is don't use overly ripe bananas, like ones that are really brown and really soft, because that will make the bananas take forever to dry. That mid-range ripe is probably where you're going to get a really good crisp that still tastes good instead of tasting starchy, kind of with not ripe bananas. All right. So another myth, unless somebody else has one they want to pop up. Another myth of dehydrating is that temperatures are precise, that you have to dehydrate things at this specific temperature to make it work correctly. And that's not true. Here's the deal. Temperature doesn't matter unless you're doing proteins or you're trying to save nutrients or it's a specific food that needs it. But for the most part, you can play around with the temperatures. So here's the deal. Proteins need specific temperatures to stay safe. Keeping all of the nutrients, if you want to keep things raw, that requires a specific temperature, because if you go above that temperature, then you start losing those vitamin A's and vitamin C's because they're heat sensitive. And then, the more you go, the higher you go, the more it happens. There are things like yeast that you want to keep low because you don't want to kill off the yeast. And then there's a thing about drying things too hot, too fast, that creates case hardening, which is when it dries so fast on the outside that it can't allow moisture to escape from the inside. And that's drying things way too hot, like in the 165 and up range, which is why if you're doing oven dehydrating, you have to be really careful for things that are already encased. But within that range, as long as it's not a protein that you need to keep up at a high temperature for it, you can dehydrate whatever temperature you want for fruits and vegetables right here in the middle, going from the recommended 135 on down. It just takes longer to dry the lower you go, but you save more nutrients. And so you can just adjust. So those temperatures given are recommended, like I said, for the balance between most nutrients kept and most efficient dry time. And that's why they are the recommended temperatures. But if your machine doesn't have that exact number, it's okay. Just go either way. It's fine. Okay. Hey, Zimmer, how are you? Let's see. Phyllis, meat's dehydrated don't last as long as I have been told. Phyllis, no. The thing about meat is that 1, it contains fat. 2, it's likely not been cured. And 3, it's protein that eventually does start to degrade. So a lot of the things that you get from the store when you buy jerky have been cured and they've been given chemicals to keep them soft. And you can't really do that. Well, the soft part you don't do at home. You can cure it as long as you're using an appropriate recipe that calls for curing salts and makes that work. Most people don't do that, and they just dry meat and then they put it on the shelf and it turns moldy because they didn't get it dry enough, or it turns rancid because the fats that are inherent in the meat turn rancid over time. So that's why jerky done at home, if you don't know what you're doing as far as curing, is best and optimally stored in the freezer just to keep it safe. All right, let's see. Vivian, that's good. I haven't researched that, so I don't know that for sure. Okay. Ed says he has 4 pounds of broccoli, just started drying based on the size I cut the florets down to after drying 2 pounds worth if it's perfectly into a wide mouth pint jar. Well, that's awesome. That way that's like a meal ready right there, serving. Okay, hey JJ, good to see you. That's awesome about the grapefruit. It's good. Okay, so another myth. Anybody else have one they want to throw out there before I give my next one? All right, so we're going to go with another myth about dehydrating is that vacuum sealing is necessary. That you have to use vacuum sealing, you have to use no-to absorber, you have to use that stuff in order to make it work. And that's a myth. Okay? Vacuum sealing and oxygen absorbers are not necessary. Moisture absorbers are not necessary. They are good tools, but they are not necessary, because what I find is so many people are afraid to dehydrate, even when they get all their stuff ready, because they don't have the tools to vacuum seal. And they say, I can't do it until I can vacuum seal because I'm afraid of losing everything. You do not have to vacuum seal as long as you have dried properly. What's the next one, folks? Come on. You guys know the next one. What's the next one? Dry properly, then anyone? Bueller? Condition. Okay. You dry properly, you condition it, and then you store it. There they go. Okay, there they go. It was slow coming in. Dry properly, condition, and store in an appropriate size container. That is all you need. Now, moisture absorbers can help when you are in and out of the jar a lot. You open it, you use it, you close it back up, and you go. And especially if you live in a humid environment, every time you open the jar, it introduces more moisture from the air into that jar and can cause things to clump like fruit powders, or make things go soft because they've gotten that little bit of extra air and moisture in there. And it can help for those things that are just inherently sticky no matter what. Any little bit of moisture can start to create havoc. So you can use a moisture absorber for that. And if I'm going to use anything, that's what I've gotten to the point where that's all I use. And I don't even use it on everything. I just use it on specific things, mostly with onion and garlic powders, with a few fruit powders. And for the rest of the stuff, I don't even use things anymore. And we have a pretty humid year outside of winter here. So it's not like we don't get humidity, but we're not tropical. We're not on the coast and stuff like that. O2 absorbers, the things that you use to remove the oxygen out of a container, is good if you're going to put something back and you want it to last for a long time and you never expect to get back into that jar or bag for a very long time, because once you open it, you have to replace it. What these tools both do is help preserve what's there. They help protect it from anything that's going to make it go bad. It doesn't necessarily make it last a whole lot longer, but it does help that. But what it stops is anything that's already there from creating a problem with the food as it is. So when you're wanting to put something in a Mylar bag, you would add an O2 absorber, you would seal the bag, and then eventually it removes all the air. And in that Mylar bag, it may not vacuum it because that's not what it's doing. It's only removing oxygen. It's not removing all the other elements of the air. So while they are good and helpful, they are not necessary as long as you dry, you condition, and you store properly. Okay, let me go back up. Somebody asked if you can dehydrate eggs safely. Queenie, you asked that and then make a powder. Safely, cook them first, then dry them, then you can powder them. I will not recommend doing raw eggs because here are the reasons why. You can. People do it. It's a thing. The problem can become an issue if you're doing eggs that contain salmonella, if they're not your eggs, if you didn't have them, if they weren't your eggs from your chickens, if you're getting them from a grocery store or from an egg dealer that you can't be sure about how they raise their chickens. Salmonella mixed in with that egg, then setting in a dehydrator at too low of a temperature to keep it safe, or because most dehydrators are cyclical in their heat, they don't run a constant 165. They run 165 and that might turn off for a while, then they come back. So it's not keeping it at that steady temperature they have to have in order to make things safe. Because you don't do that, you can't be sure that you're always going to get a safe product. And I know that once you go back and cook them, as long as you get them up to a safe temperature for long enough, it's going to kill that stuff. But that's the problem with doing raw eggs, is because you cannot be sure along any of those lines that you're going to get it. So if you're going to do it safely, cook them with no butter, no fats, nothing, no fat. You can then dry them and then powder them and then get them ready to use later. Okay. And again, optimum storage for that, because the fats and the proteins, is in the freezer. Okay, let's get back down. Can you over dehydrate foods? Joyce asks. For the most part, no. If you're going to store them, no. Beef jerky, yes. Fruit leathers, yes. But I tend to like the fruit leather after it's brittle rather than when it's soft. But if you're going to talk about putting things in for storage, you cannot over dry them. You can overheat them, but you cannot over dry them. The drier they are, the better for storage they are. Now, some people like fruits that are softer and chewier, and that's fine. You can dry it to that point, but then those should be stored in the refrigerator because you still left moisture there that you don't want to take a chance and it molds in storage. Okay. So I hope that answers your question. All right. You may have, let's see. Sharon, I'm glad your blueberry powder worked out great. Okay. Let me see. Marcia, you asked, will powdering extend the shelf life more than dehydrating? Powdering what? Can you explain that more? Do you mean powdering after you dehydrate it? Actually, if you powder it, it actually shortens the shelf life because you want to store things as whole as possible with the least amount of processing as possible. Just like with regular foods, the least amount of processing keeps the most nutrients in it. The more you process food, get it down into smaller pieces, the more that the surface area of that piece of food, no matter how small it is exposed to heat, light, air, moisture. So powdering is only recommended, or at least how I recommend it, is that you do it for a month or two, maybe 3, and then store the rest whole. When you need more, then you powder it again and store it whole as much as possible. Okay. Let's see. JJ, you can. I mean, I know a lot of people use cat litter to make their own moisture absorbers. I just don't bother because they're so cheap and they can be reused. I just choose not to. But yeah, it's way. Okay. Michelle, you asked about using the ends of vegetables. Well, if you were the one who asked that in the comments the other day, then I've already answered that for you. But you clean them and then you can make stock with them and they're cooking and nothing happens with them. They're fine. People do it all the time. So that's up to you. If you don't want to do it, then don't. Let's see. Diana, new to dehydrating. What is meant by condition? Diane. Sorry. I can't see the thing. Let me get a jar. I'll be right back. I should have brought props, shouldn't I? Because I always end up having to do this. Okay, here are some blackberries. Okay, I dried these. So to condition them, I'm going to put them in a jar that's large enough that I can say, okay, I'm going to shake it up every day. And they need to have some room to move around. It's a little small for this. I will take some out to show you. But so you have the jar, you've dried them, you've allowed them to come to room temperature, and then you put them in a jar that's big enough for them to have some shaking room. So you take it and you shake it every day. And then you put it on the shelf and just let it sit there. The next day you come back and you shake it again. What you're looking for is that within those days as you're shaking it, if you have things that stick to the top and a quick shake does not take them down, does not release them, then they may need to have some more drying time. There's compression, compaction, which is when the foods that are on the top have put pressure down the things that are on the bottom. And if they're sticky, like they contain natural sugars, they might stick. But if you can easily shake that off, that's not a problem. You have a static that can make things stick to the side, but an easy shake off should get it off. If you have things that are clumping within the jar, like when you shake it and they still just stay together and they don't come apart, then that needs to go back on into the dehydrator to dry some more. What you're doing with conditioning is that you're checking it for moisture to make sure that you have taken care of that before you ever put it on the shelf or storage so that you can stop mold. Okay. It also helps equalize the moisture between all of the pieces in the jar because you may have some pieces that dry better than others because of where they were on the trays in your machine. So you're equalizing moisture and you're also checking to make sure that there is no moisture buildup that may cause mold down the way. Then once you know it's conditioned, then you put it whatever jar that you're going to store it in and then put it on your shelf. If you plan on doing things just for snacks, like you're going to eat them within 34 days, maybe 4 or 5, in that first couple of days, you don't have to condition. This is for storage. Did that answer your question, Diane? I hope so. Let me know. Okay. Hey, Sonia, how are you? Let's see. Hey, Deborah. Good to have you here. All right. Anybody else have a myth they want to throw out there? A dehydrating myth that they've heard people say that may or may not be true? Because sometimes there are some myths that you might think are a myth that actually are true, that are things you should do. So I'd love to hear what you think. Hey, Secret Siren. Hey, glad to have you here. All right. So then I'm going to go with the next myth. I said vacuum sealing is a must. It is not. It's helpful, but it's not necessary. Then, I went through them already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm done. So I guess we can go. So those are the myths that I had just written up, trying to come up with some ideas about things that I've heard people say. So if you have any, I would love to see what your questions you have, myths that you think that are out there, comments that you want to make, anything. So just throw them out there and let's talk for a little while longer, okay? Let's see. Where do I buy my moisture absorbers? Phyllis, I get them off Amazon. My Amazon store, actually, I keep the ones that I use that are in my Amazon store so that you can go to there if you need to. You never have to shop through my stuff. That's never necessary. I just keep it handy because it's easier for me to say that. And when people go, but which ones? And it's like, well, here are the ones I use. So there they are. Let me see if I can get that up for you. I don't quickly. It's down in the description box of all the videos, but I'll stick it right here in the comments too if that helps you. There it is. All the stuff that I use or things that I know that are really good that other people use that I don't necessarily, like the Dash mandolin. I'm not a big fan of it because I don't like it as much as everybody else does, but so many people like it better than a regular flat mandolin that I keep it there too because it is a good popular piece of equipment to use. So the things that are in there are either things that I already use or things that I know that are good and recommended that I just may not happen to use those things. All right. Let's see. What are the benefits of jars over Mylar or vacuum seal bags? Grant asks. Okay, it's a personal preference. I like jars. I like to see what's inside of it. I don't like Mylar because it's not organizational friendly for me. It means that just a big stack of bags that get thrown around everywhere. They're more expensive because they're not reusable forever the way that glass jars are. I don't live in an earthquake zone. I'm not trying to take mine out camping. And you can vacuum seal them over and over and over again, and you can't do that with Mylar. Okay, Mylar is good because it blocks out heat. Some heat. It blocks out light, and it's lightweight. It doesn't break. It's good for camping and hiking that you can take it with you, or like emergency bags if you want to put it in there. So that's a good thing for it. Okay, compared to glass. Vacuum seal bags, I don't recommend for dehydrating for this reason. When you vacuum seal inside of a plastic bag like that, dehydrated foods tend to be really pointy and sharp on the edges, especially vegetables and some meats, some fruits, but not all, but still vegetables are what most people do to put in storage. Those sharp edges can puncture the plastic in vacuum seal bags, especially if you're not using like the really super thick ones. So then you've just exposed all of that food to air and moisture as it starts to seep into the bag. They are also more prone to fail on the heat seal than Mylar does. So if you're going to put it in a vacuum seal bag, I would suggest either double wrapping it with paper towels in a paper bag, in another plastic bag, anything to give that one extra layer to keep those sharp edges from getting through the plastic. So those are those are the differences. I prefer glass. I would do Mylar, but it just doesn't work for my organizational brain in my pantry. But Mylar works just fine too. I would choose vacuum seal bags last, just because of their ability to puncture and then lose food when you don't even know it's happening. Okay, let's see. Well, hey, Melody, good to see you here. Michelle, if moisture absorbers, I don't know if they still work. If you buy the kind that change color when they have absorbed all the moisture they're going to absorb, that's when you know they stopped working. They are the most handy. And then you can just put them on a tray, put them back into your machine, let your dehydrator dry them out, and use them again. They're always available to reuse. You can also put them in an oven. I just throw them back in the dehydrator because it goes all the time, so I can throw it in there. But make sure to buy the ones that change color because that makes it easier. Okay, let me go back and make sure I've gotten all of the comments or questions. Let's see. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks for that. Let's see. Jerky. Have I used a jerky gun? I do not make jerky, and no, I have not used a jerky gun. If I'm going to do jerky, it's just going to be meat. I'm not going to do the hamburger stuff. Let's see. I have a Cosori. Should I rotate the trays and flip the food while dehydrating? Dana, if you're doing something that's going to take a very long time and you're doing something like fruit leathers, I do recommend that you rotate the trays around. You don't have to rotate them in the machine if you don't want to. But fruit leathers can be so finicky and temperamental about how they're drying. That it is a good idea that occasionally go through and turn it just because the heat is coming from the back to the front. And so you can just turn it so that it evens out. But for anything else, I never bother rotating. Let's see. Hey, Heather, how are you? Let's see. Sonia asks, do I store long-term large quantities of greens or beans, etc.? If you do, what is your method? I do have some long-term food storage that way, and I preserve them in Mylar bags or inside their original packaging inside of an airtight container. I like to store them in what I'm going to use within a month or two, not in like huge bags. I use food safe buckets that I get from Lowe's, even though they don't have the food safe thing on it. I use them because you're not putting the food in the actual bucket. You're putting it in other containers in the bucket. And I'm not going to go spend a bunch of money or chase down food grade if I can't find them. So I just put them in the ones I get from Lowe's or Home Depot. And so if I'm going to vacuum seal them, I do. I don't always do everything. It just depends on what I'm wanting to do. I don't bother freezing any of my grains because if I'm vacuum sealing it, it's the same thing. You're making it to where the eggs or the bug can't survive. So that's all I do. Does that help? Did you need to know any more? I don't know what you're asking for more than that, but I just make sure that I divide it up into manageable size portions and not just keeping it in a big bag inside of a big tub. When having to open that big bag and then take stuff out, I just open the one bag, pull it out, and then I can use that until I need the next one. Okay, well, let's see. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Diane. I really appreciate that. Okay. Hey, Sarah. I was just in Tyler the other day. And I'll be out there in 2 weeks too. Let's see. Do the types of potato matter when dehydrating? It matters only in some potatoes don't need to be treated as much as other potatoes do. They don't all turn. Really waxy potatoes don't turn the way that russet potatoes do. And because they're firmer, they may have a different texture once you're rehydrating them. But any potato works. Don't discriminate against the potato that you're going to use to dehydrate. Okay, just use any of them. They all work. It's best to go ahead and blanch them just to be safe. But you can use any potato. Okay, let's see who else. Oh, Grant, I'm glad that answered your question. Gail asks, if you make a dehydrated meal in a jar, should you add a moisture absorber to that since you are combining several already conditioned items and then adding them to a new jar? Gail, as long as you haven't left them out to be exposed to all the air, I don't bother because you're putting things that you've already prepared correctly into a jar, immediately sealing it. You don't really have a need. If you want to, go ahead because it's not going to hurt to do it. Okay. It's just not one of those things that you absolutely have to do. However, I do know people who want to put those aside for a while and because they're using them as emergency meals. And so they will put an O2 absorber in there to take all the air out of the jar to make sure that that's protected the best that they can protect it. Okay. But you can do either one if you want, but I don't find either is necessary. Let's see. Hey, CM, I'm glad that you're here no matter when you got here. If I didn't cover it, could you discuss DR and meat? DR and meat? Dehydrating and meat? Is that what you mean? We did discuss it already, but basically, if you're going to dehydrate meats, optimally store them in the freezer. Keep them at the safe temperature they need to be at, whether it's 140 or 160, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing chicken for humans, then you need to cook it first. Did that answer? Optimally store them in the freezer? Hope that helped. Let me know if you have a more specific question. Okay, let's see. Oh, thanks, Cindy. Seeing those question marks, the hashtags before a question or doing an all caps or doing, question, whatever, that helps me see what they are. If I use blow tape to the front sides of shelves for darkness. Oh, JJ, I see what you mean. Yeah, just any kind of tarp on the front of your shelf to help promote darkness. That's fine. That helps because light, heat, air, moisture are those things that are going to kill your foods. Okay, Cindy asks, what is the best way to store sliced cheese? Can you pressure seal it in jars? You can't do any of that. Sliced cheese, if you're going to store it, you can store it in the refrigerator or you can store it in the freezer. But many of those kind of cheeses will crumble when you try to use them. All the time growing up with my kids, if we got cheese on sale, I would buy some extra sliced, regular sliced cheese, not sliced real cheese, but that sliced cheese, the sandwich stuff. And we would put it in the freezer and it would be fine because it's not real. But if you put real cheese in the freezer, it does tend to crumble. But no, you can't pressure canned cheese. Okay, let's see what else. I just bought a tub of yogurt and wanted to try dehydrating it to make it a little treat. Any tips? I've never done it before. Okay, Tamara, make sure that yogurt is pasteurized first because the thing about doing milk in a dehydrator, if you're going to keep it on the safe end, is that keeping milk at that's not been pasteurized at a temperature that's not fully safe, can promote bad things to happen later. So if it's pasteurized already, then you're good to go. You can do drops of it, just put drops of it on your machine. And what they're going to do is they're going to flatten out and create discs. So it's not going to be like those puffy yogurt things that you see at a store. They're going to be flat discs. If you've bought non-flavored yogurt now, you can always add like a fruit powder to it or jam to it and make that into flavor if you'd like to try that. And optimally store them in your refrigerator because that's where they need to go. Hey, okay, let's see. Well, good, Dara. I'm glad you got them. Let's see. Hey, Creative Beauties, good to see you here. Renee, thanks for those hashtags. That helps to see. I just found your channel and purchased my first dehydrator, the Excalibur 9 tray. I love my Excalibur. I just wish I could use it still. Is it normal for the front door to have a bit of a gap? Yes, that gap, when the door hangs there, it does not hang into it. There is a little edge. It needs that for circulation of the air. So that's a fine. Enjoy your Excalibur. They are great machines. Mine just doesn't fit where it needs to fit. And everybody's probably heard this story 100 times already. We store my dehydrators have to be in my laundry closet that's here right behind me because we have no space in the kitchen to keep it. And they're almost all loud enough that it becomes a problem. So we've found that's the best place for it. And then we had to get a new dryer last year. 2 years ago, last year, we got it last year. It just died and we had to have it fixed. Like the day after we bought it, the year warranty. Thankfully, the manufacturer covered the warranty, even though Lowe's wouldn't. But it kind of just blew up on the inside. So, and it was probably from faulty wiring putting together when the installers put it in. Okay, big story, doesn't matter. Our life the last few weeks with things falling apart is a thing. So we're kind of used to that. So, okay, so when we got the new dryer, it slopes on the front instead of being straight and square. It kind of slopes. So the Excalibur doesn't fit. It just kind of always wants to slide off. So I use my Cosori all the time now because it fits. So at some point when I get around to it, when I keep, remember, we need to build a platform to go on top of the dryer for when we're not drying clothes that we can put there so that the Excalibur can sit on it so that I have more volume so I can do. But my Cosori is great too. So I love it. But the Excalibur is a great machine, good machine to get. Okay. Let me go back up and catch up. Let's see. Gary asked, Jerry or Gary? I'm not sure which. I'm sorry. I think it's Jerry, probably. So glad I started prepping when I did. It's a lifestyle now. Thank you for your advice and channel. I make vegetable powders now. Yeah, vegetable powders are so great. I love them. They're just awesome. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry, Stay Gold. I talk fast. That's how I am. I'm really sorry. You can play this later and slow the speed down if it helps you. I've always been a fast talker. I'm sorry. Okay. Can you dehydrate hamburger that has been cooked? I'm new to dehydrating. Creative Beauties, you can. Okay. The thing that you're going to want to do is that the best way to do it, I find, is if you boil it first, just so it's done, not boil it to death, but boil it till it's done. It helps remove more of the fat than if you cook it. Like if you just brown it on top of the stove, it does work better to be boiled. But if you do it, no matter what, get as much of the fat out of it as you can. I don't necessarily recommend rinsing it in your sink, trying to get the fat out, because you're just putting that fat into your sink and then you can cause problems with your pipes later. So it's a thing. So I'm never going to recommend that, but get rid of as much fat as you can. And then while you're drying it, you're going to want to pat it a lot because you might start seeing that fats start coming to the surface, and then you're going to want to pat those out. When you're fully dried, and you want them to be like little rocks, okay, that's fully dried, store them in your freezer optimally, okay, because eventually I know that people say that you can keep it for up to a year. The problem is if you don't get it good and dry, and if you don't get rid of as much of the fat as you possibly can, it could turn rancid on your shelf. So optimally, it should be stored in the freezer. But it's still available to pull out to use for a hiking or camping trip, or if you want to put it in a meal or jar to give somebody, just let them know that they need to use it sooner rather than later. You can still use it that way. It will give you time to be out of the freezer. You just don't necessarily want to keep it there forever just in case of the rancidity. I always like to err on the safe side. So there you go. Okay. Hey, Ruth, how are you? I'm sorry. I'm not going to alter how I speak because then I start losing the train of thought. I'm sorry that I don't speak well enough for you, but I try. Okay. Let's see. Canning 9 pints of hamburger as I listen today. Well, Vivian, sorry. Bian, is that how you say that? Great. Putting hamburger up is awesome. Um, Putting up anything into the pantry right now is the way that we all should be doing to stock our pantries, just for anything, because life's little emergencies happen, whether they're really big or really small. Okay, I'm going to take a drink real quick. JJ, I've never tried steaming the meat to do a hamburger that way. I've never tried it. It would work the same as long as you're getting rid of the fat. Then you're getting rid of the fat. Hey, Homestead Chile, how are you? Oh, thank you, Wanda. I'm so glad that it's helpful. That's what I'm here for, is to teach. Everything that I've learned from everywhere that I've learned it from is to just pass that on to everybody else, so that you can stock your pantries for your family, because it's so important no matter what. And even if you're not stocking your pantry, just being able to use your food and not waste it is a good thing. JJ, you only can meats because you can't really dehydrate it well and store it. Yeah, that's how I am too. And because it makes it readily available to just toss it and heat it and go. It canning, I think, is a better way to preserve meats, that for that reason. It makes it better. Now, again, when I say that storing meats on the shelf isn't recommended, that doesn't mean you can't. Okay, I'm never going to tell somebody you can't do it. It's not unsafe. It's just, why waste all of it just for the chance that you might not have gotten it done well enough? I would hate, especially as expensive as meat is now. Yeah. All right. Emily, were we affected by the tornadoes and the bad weather? We were, but not in the way that people lost houses and things. One of the funnels that never actually developed into a tornado. And here's a good storm tip for everybody. My little storm geek thing is going to fall out. I am a certified storm chaser and weather geek. And when you have a funnel, that is when it's rotating in the air, and it's in the air. Okay. You can see rotation in the cloud, or you can actually see the funnel forming in the sky. When it hits the ground, then it's a tornado. When it comes off the ground, it's a funnel again. So we had one of the funnels that were heading straight for our house. I mean, like beeline for our house. So we had already packed up all the important papers, got our money, our computer equipment that we needed to try to pull and save, all packed up into the bathroom. Got our first aid kit in there. Got everything. Everybody got their shoes on. Everybody got ready. We all got the bathroom ready to go jump in the bathroom in case it actually came. It stopped about half a mile away from us, we think. So it never actually touched down, and it never got to us. But there was a lot of devastation out west of us and out south of us. So it was scary that night. There was a lot of jittery nerves, and that's how we were affected. But we didn't have the damage that everybody else had that was around us. It was a wild night around a lot of places. Let's see. Would it be better to can hamburger? Cooking first? Sorry, I just learned as much as I can. Creative Beauties, if ever you want to know how to cook, how to can very well, okay, safely, go to the National Center for Home Food Preservation. Their site will give you the instructions on how to can everything safely. Hamburger should be canned, should be cooked before you can it. Because if you put raw hamburger meat into a jar to can, it's so dense that you may not effectively get the entire thing done well, and you could leave yourself open for some problems. So it should be cooked first. They have instructions. There are a couple of channels that you can follow as well. Sutton's Days. She is a channel that is focusing on canning and food storage. She has done some rubble canning in the past, but she will tell you if this is not an approved method. She will tell you way up front and why it's not approved, and then give you the right instructions. But she never tries to hide that I do this and it doesn't matter. She'll say this is not approved. So, but everything she does recently has been just the safety ways to do it. Then there's Tululu Creates. The number 2 Lee, LOU, Tululu Creates. Then there's Linda's Pantry. Then there is Mouse Toes. They are all channels, and then there's Simply Canning. They are all channels that do safe canning that will give you a really good start on canning. Okay, let's see. Queenie, yeah, not dehydrating to not waste food. It's great. Not all of us have gardens, and so that's a way that we can buy the food that we get from the store and use it up if we can't use it when we buy it on sale and get good quantities of it. That's how I stock, because I don't have a garden that's large enough that can sustain us. So I do it from the grocery store. And instead of letting that stuff just go to waste, if I don't get it eaten quickly enough, we dehydrate it. Connie, it was scary. I'm sure it wasn't anywhere near as scary as those people who actually had to deal with the tornadoes, who had, their lives changed. But it was scary just watching it come to us, because as we were watching the news and they kept adjusting the radar and it kept adjusting, we were like, oh, it's coming. And then it just kept narrowing it down. And it was like a beeline right for us. And it had already been a little tough around here lately with other things that were going on in her life, that it was just like, no, just no more. Let's see. Melody says that she is dehydrating apples today and she thinks she sliced them too thin. Why do you think they were too thin, Melody? The only reason that I think that an apple could be too thin is that it sticks to your tray and it's hard to get off. But otherwise, even if it breaks a lot, that just means you have more little pieces to eat and they could be crisper. So that's not a bad thing. Let's see. Lee is dehydrating 10 pounds of yellow potatoes. Well, there you go. He's pulled out the bread machine for a loaf of bread, and good. Yeah. Start learning how to make bread. I need to learn. I know how to make, no knead bread. But I'm not really good with yeast breads. I've never really mastered that yeast thing. And so, yeah, we may need to be doing that soon. So it's one of those things that I should start tackling too. And you guys, if you've ever seen Lee in the comments on any of my videos, he has so much information. He is a font of good information on food storage, on dehydrating, on everything. So if you see him in my comments, pay attention to what he says. Okay, let's see what else. Oh, Gail, if only I had a grinder. Yeah, to grind my own meat, that would be a great thing. But if you have a grocery store that does have a meat department and you buy food, ask them if they'll grind them for you, because oftentimes they'll do that for free. Grant, am I going to do a physical copy of my book? When the book comes out, there will be a physical copy available as a print on demand. I'm not going to have it available at Amazon, but you can order it and you can have it printed, and it will take about a week and a half to get it to you, but it will be available that way. It will be available in a spiral, but it will not be available to send to the UK. I'm really, really sorry. But you can purchase an ebook of it and print it yourself. Okay, that could be the way that you take care of that. Okay, who else? Cindy, thank you. I'm glad that it's helpful. I'm trying to go through here. Let's see. Any other questions? John, I know that doing sourdough, I don't require yeast, but sourdough has also not been my friend. That whole thing is something I've not spent enough time learning how to do. So it's just one of those things I need to tackle eventually. Do you put the silicone sheets in dehydrator? Catherine, do I use silicone sheets in my dehydrator? Yes, I do. I use silicone or Teflon coated. It depends on which machine I'm using. But yes, I will use those if needed. I don't use them as often as I do just mesh. The mesh is more beneficial to me for most things because it has more circulation of the air. It does help non-stick things, and I just like it better. But silicone is great for things that are going to be really sticky, for things like fruit leathers that you need to have that solid surface. So yeah, you use whatever is recommended for your machine, but then there are some things that you can buy in places where you can use it that way as well. I use both. Okay. Lee, good, because that's what we need to be all doing, is just paying for what we know to help the next generation up. Okay. Melody, yeah, keep trying. You'll get it eventually, I'm sure. Eventually I will. I just need to spend the time to do it instead of giving up and saying I'll just buy it this week. I just need to spend that time. Dara, I get all of my Teflon sheets from Amazon. It's a brand called Homey. It's Homey. It is a Teflon coated sheet. It's not the same Teflon that we had back in the 80s and 90s. Teflon has come a long way since then. We're also not heating up those machines enough to create the same issue with Teflon that you would if you're putting on a stovetop and overheating it. They are less than $20 for a whole pack. I think they were $16.99 US dollars the last time that I saw them. So that's what I use. It's Homey, Homey. But you can also get any from the silicone sheets come from, like, there are a lot of people who sell them. Excaliburs, I really love not the ultra Paraflex, the ones that are like brown, light brown, and then a really dark brown rim, but if they're just the plain one, the plain silicone sheet. I like those, but you can't cut them. So any silicone that you buy on Amazon, you have to be really careful about cutting them if you're trying to cut them for a smaller machine, because many of them contain fiberglass and you don't want that exposed. So that's why I like the Homey brand of the Teflon sheets, because those can be cut safely. But I like the Excalibur Paraflex. They're, because I think it's probably the best sheet out there, but they're expensive. So I know not everybody can do that. There is Bright Kitchen are the ones that are green. They're pure silicone. They're not my favorite, but I know a lot of people like them. And then I'm sure there are other, you can just use any kind of silicone molds. If you want to do a mold shape, you can just use anything like that. All right. Question. Can you can commercial chicken broth? Kim? No. But yeah. Okay. Technically, the NCHFP, the safety measure that we follow for canning, says no, don't bother recanning. There's no point in it. I would either freeze it, dehydrate it, or just leave it in the original containers that you have. But if you're going to rubble can, then yes, you can do them. You just have to do them the same way that you would do if you started from fresh. Okay. Let's see what else. Thanks, Cindy. I appreciate that. What dehydrator items do you use the most? Okay, John, let's see. What do I use the most? Canning jars. To prep, I do my knife, or I use a mandolin. I've been using the OXO mandolin that has the V-shaped blades, but I have purchased the straight blade to try it for a while. I use the chainmail cutting glove. Anytime you use a mandolin, use the cutting glove to save your fingers. Trust me. Okay. I use, let's see, a salad spinner I use all the time, because after I've washed things, I can put it in the salad spinner, spin it, and it dries them. What else do I use a lot of? I use my bullet blender. I have a Nutri Ninja bullet blender, but any of them will work to make powders. That's the one I use the most for powder making, but you can use a coffee grinder. I use the Cosori coffee grinder when I'm doing a small amount. You can use a regular blender too, for larger amounts. If I'm doing greens, I use my big blender for that. What else do I use? I use mesh on the trays all the time. No matter what trays I use, there's always mesh on it. Because I hate cleaning trays. Then I do, what else do I use all the time? Sorry, I'm trying to go through here and seeing what I've got on the shelf and then thinking about what's in there. Oh, I use a Full Star vegetable chopper. It's called Full Star. It is a rectangular box that has grates that you can put in to do squares that are either like dices in 2 different sizes, and it makes chopping things so much faster. So I use that a lot. And then I use an art brush. Is it handy? I use this art brush when I am making powders to get the powder out of my grinder, whichever one I'm using, to get as much of that powder out as I can. Those are the things I use the most often. And my labeler, because if I don't label things, I'm never going to remember. I use this for something that's going to be permanent. If it's always going to be stored in that jar, or I will just use a piece of like painter's tape or masking tape and put a note on there. I also mostly do my lids. I will put a mark on there about what they are, and I can erase that. I do it with a permanent marker, and then I can erase that with a little bit of alcohol. But I still use this because I see things here, because of the way that I store things, I can see them this way better than I can see the lids. All right, I hope that helped. I do not use parchment paper SB because it's not reusable. It doesn't work as well as silicone or Teflon coated sheets. And it can absorb moisture on things that are really wet. So I just choose not to use it. I use something that is, I just prefer using tools that are made for the dehydrator. Okay, let's see what else. Oh, Derek. Derek, you said that. Okay, she just purchased a Cosori. Just in case anybody's looking for one, I'm only saying this because it only lasts for 2 more weeks. Cosori is giving my readers and my viewers a special deal to get a Cosori 6-tray stainless steel dehydrator for $128.99 US for those who live in the US. Unfortunately, it's not for people who live in other parts of the world because they can't ship that way, and so they don't sell them there. You can probably get them locally with Ivation or a Magic Mill or the same kind of machine that you can probably get where you are. I have put the link for it down in the description box because it's a specific link that you have to use, and then you use code TPP, and that gets you 10%. 15%, 10%, 15% off the stated price when you go to the website, then the code gets you the sale price. So if you're looking for one, thanks for reminding me. That's where you can go. Okay. Let's see. I got a dehydrator for Christmas, Vian says, and it didn't work. Contact the company, and they sent me another one with a lid that cracked and had a hole in it. Could I cover it with foil? Okay, yeah, you can, but I really make them give you a new machine, okay? Because they need to give you one that works correctly. So call them back, tell them what happened, make them send you a new one, okay? You can use foil over it because all you're trying to do is make sure that it has a good airflow. Too many holes may make it to where it doesn't work efficiently, but yeah, you can do that. Is there mesh for the Cosori dehydrator that fits end to end? Evelyn, there is not. They do not make it. I have talked to them till my face has turned redder than it normally is. Should I say blue? I have talked to them blue about making mesh that is the right size for that machine. Their mesh that they make is not. It does not go side to side, which is why I bought mesh that I could cut down to fit on the machine, because that little extra is just a lot that you can do. So I bought it. I don't even remember what that brand was anymore. And I'm having a harder time finding 12 by 12 mesh that isn't the silicone mesh that's really that you can like wad up in a ball. I like the stiffer mesh. So if you can find that, then that's what I would get, and cut it down to make the size that you need. And honestly, as much as I love the Cosori, their mesh is really expensive. It's good mesh. I like it. It works really well, but it's really expensive when there are better options out there. Okay. Let's see. Trying to check the time. Some say silicone are for fruits or jerky. Does it make a difference? Silicone is for fruit and jerky to help it not. Well, for fruit, some fruits can stick. Silicone can be used for however you want to use it. You can use it for everything that you do, or you can use it just for those things that are super, super sticky. I just prefer mesh in all cases whenever possible. I just like working with it better. And I use mesh and I use the silicone sheets or the Teflon if I have fruits that are really sticky, fruits that will stain, or if I'm doing something like fruit leathers or anything like that that need that solid surface. But use whatever you want. If it's appropriate for the food that you're using, it's fine. Let's see. Anything else? Melody, what have you dehydrated in the last 2 days? If you just got your machine, what did you start with? All right. So before we wrap up, because it's been about an hour and I've been jabbering like crazy, do you have any more questions that you'd like to ask while you have me here? Oh, the last thing that I forgot to even mention, and I didn't write notes for it. Okay. I am opening a membership for the Purposeful Pantry here on YouTube. It is down below. There's a little join button that you can see at the bottom. You do not have to do this, okay? This is not like me telling you I will never talk to you in a live like this again. The membership is to give you access, a little more access to me. Once a month, I'm going to do a live chat just for the membership on the first Sunday evening of every month, where it'll be where we have these live chats like that are scheduled every month. You will also get, whenever it's possible, I will create a printable for the project that I've done that week that you can print off that'll be available only to the membership. There are 2 levels. There's one for $1.99 a month, and there's one for $3.99 a month. And then the last thing that it offers you, I set this up a little while ago, is that you get a discount in the store if you want it. There's a code for you there that you can use. So I'm opening that up as officially for April 1st. It's there now. Wait till April 1st to get it, or do it now if you want. I don't want you to pay for an extra month when there's not a lot happening yet. So wait till April 1st, then join. That first Sunday will be a chat just for the membership. And then every month it'll work that way. You'll get some free printables. during the month when it makes sense. And then there'll be a chat once a month for questions and answers in a smaller setting. Okay. I'm doing that, but it's not something that you need to join. You're not going to miss out on tutorials, on videos. I'm not going to stop producing videos. I'm not going to stop these occasional live chats like we do today. The only reason, I don't know how many of you saw it, but the reason we had to do a live today was because our plumbing exploded about 2.5 months ago. And it took us some time to get the financing set up for it because this is a massive, massive project. We have to replace all the plumbing in the entire house. And so right now it's torn up. They have been working for the last 3 days, digging a trench from the street down to our house, under our house, all the way to the back of the house, because our house is set up where the plumbing is all in one wall. So they've just had a tunnel under the entire house that can replace all that plumbing all the way. And so they've been working on it, and I couldn't do any videos this week. So it was like, well, we need to do a live then. So, that's why we're here today. But I don't want to say that I'll never do lives again, because I will. I'm just going to do the special ones for members because I wanted to create something special. Okay. All right. Let's see. Who else might have a question? Evelyn, are you dehydrating onions? Do you have them outside? Do you have your windows open? How are you doing that? Because I know a lot of people don't like to do them if it's all very closed up because they can smell. And a tip for that is if you freeze them ahead of time, it helps cut down that smell. If you caramelize them or if you stew them, that's really what you're doing. You're kind of stewing them. If you do that, it cuts down the smell a whole lot too. Melody did mushroom powder. She did kiwi and apples for her first tries. Those are awesome. And the flavored marshmallows are a fun treat. They'll be a fun treat for you. Diane has seen bread recipes. It calls for flour, mayonnaise, and salt. Yeah, so no need. They're basically no need. Because of the fat, the flour and salt. So that would be, they don't have to use yeast to help it rise. Okay. All right. So that is, I see no more questions. If you have any, inside it's very fragrant, Evelyn, because you're doing the onions. That's great. So I'm glad that you were all here today. If you have questions, just ask them down in the comments. Once the video stops playing live, you can just go ahead in the discussion comments and ask there if you have more questions. And hey, Susan, good to see you here. Anything else you need, go to the website, thepurposefulpantry.com. They'll have something, I'll have a ton of information there. You can just use a little search bar at the top. And anything else you need, just let me know. So I hope to see you guys again later. And until next time, happy dehydrating.